Thanks for attending this evening, as I say. This is the 4th edition of the Perth App Developer Meetup. Today we're joined by 4 guests for a Q&A session.
Hey, I'm Andy Hope. I'm iOS engineer currently at ANZ, working on the ANZ Plus platform. Previously, I've worked at Facebook and Twitter, so I'll be answering questions about life in the US and big tech and all that kind of stuff.
I'm Luke Durrant. I'm working at Liven, found my shirt, and I was previously at Domain Group in the Eastern States. Native iOS engineer, but I've also been doing a lot of kind of cross-platform Android stuff as well.
Hi, I'm Elliott. I work with Adapptor as a senior software engineer. My background is primarily in multi-platform app development, and most of my career I actually worked in Europe. My background is mostly in medical tech and healthcare, and building high-quality apps in the domains that require craftsmanship and high-level usability is something I specialize in.
Hi, I'm Sam Ritchie. I'm a mostly native mobile app developer, but I also do other things as well. You know, only recently I've jumped on the Android bandwagon. I used to tell people I didn't do Android, so they wouldn't ask me to do Android projects for them, but I have done some and it's better now, trust me. I'm self-employed. I do projects mostly for startups and SMEs. I've been focusing on, I run the Perth iOS Mobile Developers Group, which has been going for about 10 years. So you should come along to ours. We don't have quite the range of refreshments, but we're still lots of fun.
So Andy, I wanted to ask you the first question tonight. So as you mentioned before, you've been working in big tech. If you could summarize your time in a bit of an overall, that'd be great. Any core differences between working in the States and comparing it to working in Australia? And also, any advice to those who wish to get into it or are planning on taking that jump?
So I spent 4.5 years at Facebook in Silicon Valley as well as New York. The biggest thing about what they do over there, at least at a company like Facebook or Google or whatnot, is that you get to really dive deep into the nuanced technical problems. Like I spent about 6 months working on just images, how to display images to the users, which was a typical thing you could do in 5 minutes in any other Australian company, but there, you know, you do it at scale. In a movie, like watching or playing on the Instagram app or Facebook, every time you see an asset, like a non-user generated image in the Facebook app, that's my work. So it's my little thing. Like even the new Threads app, it still runs on all the stuff I built, or some of the stuff I built, I should say. Yeah, and the biggest thing with the US is you're gonna have like a lot of, like Perth is pretty small. So like you have these meetups here, but these meetups will happen pretty much every other day. And then you can sort of go to any meetup of any interest you like and then meet with these engineers and like, oh, I work at Google, I work at Uber. But after a while, it gets annoying because you don't want to meet engineers anymore. I'm sick of meeting engineers. So when I moved to New York, I met up with journalists and artists. It's like, this is much cooler. But it fades off pretty well. As well as, you know, the pay compensation and, you know, you watch Mark give a talk and whatnot, so that's pretty cool. It's pretty rough to get into the US market right now because interest rates are so high and everyone's doing all these layoffs, but if you want to do it, just practice algorithms. Like, they're useless once you get in there, but it's just the high bar that they have or the stupid bar that they have.
Luke, I'm going to pass the mic to you next. I'd love to hear a bit about your time at Domain. I know you spent a good chunk there, and there's a lot of changes in the world whilst you were there. I can imagine that things being in the priority space kind of slowed down, but then extremely ramped up very quickly. If you could summarize a bit more about your time there and how the platform coped, any major changes you had to do, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, so he's talking about the C word, COVID. It was, so my time personally was, I was contracting for Domain and then my engineering manager told me like, hey, join us, you've been here for 5 years, like you're part of the furniture now, join us full time properly. I'm like, no. And he was like, what if I could get you to go remote? And I convinced the old dinosaurs that was at the time, Fairfax, that to allow remote working, and they were very much kind of bums on seats. This was in October 2019, and then 3 months later, everyone went remote basically. So I like to call myself a bit of a trendsetter. But yeah, for their benefit, it kind of meant that all the HR contracts and stuff was in place for remote. But from a product perspective, it was really quite interesting. Things, whilst everyone kind of got over the uncertainty, people kind of literally batten down the hatches and kind of not moving and still browsing. We saw a lot of people, you know, courtrooms and courtyards searches and that sort of thing just skyrocket up, like, because people wanted space, especially in Sydney market. Apartment living, like, it's not good being stuck in a 40 square metre apartment. That was a massive change, but people have life things that go on, and because it went on for so long, like, you know, you have a baby and you need another room. So the property industry definitely pushed to keep the lights on and make sure that inspections could still happen. And that happened, like, I was really surprised. It happened really quickly. And then it kind of fast-tracked the whole 360 panoramas and getting in to see the property before you've seen the property. And it was always something that was at Domain, but it kind of just accelerated that, and we kind of had to quickly, speaking to native, we had to kind of release really, really quickly, and we kind of made some changes in the platform to kind of make sure that the strings and the specific information could change, because it literally, you know, Gladys would have her kind of chat and you'd be like, oh, the rules have changed, all right, we've got to change the text that displays in the app, we can't wait for a phase release. So yeah, did I answer the question? I rambled.
No, that was great. Thank you so much. Does anyone else have any comments on the type of, you know, working environment? I know, Elliott, you were obviously working over in Europe, and what was that like? You know, any more differences that may have happened, or?
I'm sure that applies to the US as well, but there's only Europe. It's like different parts of Europe have distinct with different working cultures. Finland, for example, where I spent the last 3 years, is famous for being the country with the highest share of remote workers in the continent. 60% of all Finnish workers work remotely. So remote work there is not an issue. I mean, it would be a rarity for an employee to actually show up at the office. At the same time, in Northern Europe, corporate hierarchy is very flat. So even if you work in a relatively traditional setting like healthcare, it still feels kind of like working in a startup. You can go and have a casual chat with the CEO, and you always have an input. You can always provide an input to any kind of stakeholders on methods that might not even directly apply to your position, but the feedback is always welcome. So that kind of like a flat hierarchy is a trait of Nordics in general. Not sure about, let's say, places like Germany or France, it might be something different.
Thank you for that. Elliott, the next question is for you, so you can carry on holding the mic. As we both work for the same company, I do know a bit about your background and skill set. I know you've got both skills in Flutter and React Native. What is your preference and why? Where do you see cross-platform languages heading in the future?
Absolutely. Flutter all the way. No, I'm just kidding.
You're not.
Done. Next question. The answer really depends on what your team is like, what you're building, and what you prioritize in the project. 2 years ago, I would tell you that depending on the kind of app you're building, you would carefully evaluate what each of the frameworks or each of the technologies offer and pick the one that is most suitable for your project. 2 years later, or these days, I would say it doesn't even matter that much. The tooling and the quality of both of the solutions have improved so much that you can build 99% of the apps using either of them. You can build fantastic experiences with great animations, great look and feel, and performance. So we used to say that React Native doesn't have the best performance in certain scenarios, so Flutter might have a bit of a jump on different platforms. No longer relevant, really. So what is relevant then? What is relevant is, what are you personally, what is your background? What are you confident? What kind of languages do you personally prefer? Do you have more of a web background or native software development background? And depending on that, you can pick the tool and technology that fits your personal preference. If you're a team lead or an engineering manager, what is your team like? What background do they have? And what kind of technology do they prefer working with? At the same time, I would say that it's not only Flutter these days, or Flutter React Native, it's also Maui on .NET side, it's Kotlin multi-platform. So it's the best time ever to build multi-platform apps or apps in general, and just pick the technology that your team is comfortable with and the technology your team can be productive with, and just deliver with that. You can build great apps, and there's a lot more complexity to building a great app than just picking a framework. It's about understanding the user, carefully evaluating the requirements, designing beautiful and well-crafted user interface, and just implementing it in your framework of your choice. But one thing I would recommend is trying to optimize your workflow by having your team members being a bit more full stack. And in that sense, pick a language or the set of technologies that help you to deliver across both front-end and back-end in a productive fashion. If you're a junior developer, or if you're looking to, let's say, begin a career in tech, investigate the job market, see what technology is popular in your area. If you're hiring, the changing technology is probably more dependent on the talent, availability of the talent, and the kind of technologies that people around you are using.
So, fun fact about React Native. So obviously Facebook created React Native, right? There was a point where they were unsure about it, like, do we keep building this thing or not? So if you look at the Facebook app, the marketplace is completely React Native, and that's them trying to prove React Native is still good. I'm not saying it's not, but I'm saying it's like a little bit of interesting fact. It's like, yeah, Facebook want to kill, but now the marketplace. So if you like marketplace for like that kind of complexity, then React Native is also really, really good, yeah.
Honestly, again, for any major multi-platform framework, name it a couple of apps that are really good, they deliver incredible user experience, and they built on that specific framework. So yeah, just make sure that your team is productive and build great apps.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to disagree with you. Partly because of my experience at Domain. React Native is good, and it is important to consider the people that you have on your team. But it comes down to the product. I think Facebook is probably the most known example where you just looked at, back when it was a UI web view, you could look at the app reviews and people just complaining like, why is it so laggy, why is it so laggy? And it's like, it's because it's a web view. React Native has, thank you, I know you weren't responsible for it, but if your company that you're working at, React Native has sped that up, but it depends, like, I hate that, and all software engineers say it, but it depends. And it's very nuanced. Like at Domain, we had a bunch of native engineers, and we were building, but we needed more, and it was in a time where you couldn't get native engineers for love for money. And we had a bunch of React engineers kind of not doing anything on the web platform, and so we were like, hey, React Native, surely it's in the name, it'll work fine, right? And it's like, no, because there's platform differences, and it starts from the hierarchy of the language, and then as every Apple changes things and Android changes things every year, there's new things that get released, and if you're building a product, it is really important to take that into consideration, because just because there's the word React in it, those engineers don't understand the nuance of the platform and how to optimize and build something so that when somebody comes along again, mainly the native engineers at Domain, it was like, why has it been built like this? This is against our architecture, and this is against our platform. It made sense in a React Native world, but in a React world, but not in a React Native or mobile platform world. Things like reloading the entire screen and that sort of thing, and not getting the nuances of the platform. Yeah, I rambled again. Sorry. Take the mic.
I agree with you that the main trick is in web and mobile, and even if you have web developers jumping into the React Native project, the good thing for that would be to have a genuine passion for mobile platform and trying to understand the nuance of the world of mobile. It's more likely that they would be able to pick up React Native faster than, let's say, native engineers who don't have background with or you can't familiarity with React, but absolutely there's a guarantee you're going to get that high quality experience. Worth having people with mobile-specific background at the team, but maybe helping people to pick up those mobile-specific nuances. But same is true for any other framework or platform. Flutter has lots of nuances and how to build performant apps. .NET MAUI has a lot of very specific things that you have to keep in mind to make sure that the app is performance. True for any technology, and none of them is silver bullet delivers you a perfect app without much effort.
Great, sounds like that's a good conversation. And there's a question on here that we all know that probably, get a few rants going. But I want to just pass over to Sam, if that's okay. Before we get into that. So Sam, you obviously had a reasonable time working over at Lateral, who have been obviously around in Perth for quite some time, and you've obviously branched out to start your own thing. There could be a couple of people here in the audience. Do you have any advice? I don't want you to share all your secrets of your business, but do you have any advice or any points to share for people that maybe want to go out on their own, are quite interested in working purely with startups and helping in that sense? Any points or things to share?
Well, I'm happy to share any secrets, but I don't have any. I started working as an in-house software developer, and I still firmly believe that in theory, that's the most efficient, productive way of getting valuable software built is having somebody embedded in the business and working side by side with people actually using the software and getting stuff out and that type of thing. I ended up in a larger business, and it turns out productive and efficient are relative terms. In those sorts of organisations, I got a little bit disillusioned with it there, and that's when I ended up when I first jumped to Lateral. And I didn't think I would enjoy consulting, but I actually really liked it. It's an opportunity to go in and work with completely different businesses, and new sort of completely different industries in many cases, and it's a lot of fun. So the main thing with consulting is businesses hire consultants because they want turnkey expertise. So it's just being trying to develop that high level of expertise and being able to hit the ground running, understand what problem they're trying to solve, and being able to give fearless advice, which has never been a problem for me. That's good. It's perhaps has been career limiting sometimes, but that's an important part of it. But I mean, also having been in-house, I know the downside, the reputation that consultants have of coming in and making grand pronouncements and ending up leaving a mess for somebody else to sort out. That's something I'm very conscious of and not wanting to do to other people. So I've certainly, a lot of it is just really trying to understand what's the best option for this specific business going forward, what suits them best. And sometimes it's coming in and fixing up the mess that other consultants left behind, which is good. I still firmly believe that if your business is, if your product or service is substantially based on custom software, that you should have software developers on staff. But that's not always an option for startups and SMEs, and sort of that's where I've found my particular sector is helping those companies and trying to fill that role for them. We've sort of gone through this stage where we've got almost hyper-specialisation in software development. So you can't even hire a web developer anymore. You have to hire a front-end engineer who's got Tailwind and Beat and TypeScript and Next.js and whatnot. So, back in the days when you might say we've got to hire a developer, and it's not the case anymore. So sometimes having specialised expertise, and being able to make you, have being known for that particular technology or technology stack, that's really helpful. For me, the biggest thing's been running the iOS Developers Meetup. For better or worse, I've got the reputation as an iOS development expert. Whether or not that's warranted, I couldn't tell you, but that's what happened. So I'm not going to turn that away. And yeah, it's really just the basics of running a business, more or less. So it's trying to provide value to your clients and making sure you build that relationship with them. And some of the clients I've worked with for 6-7 years, and it's because I'm just trying to focus on what's right for them in their business.
I want to circle back then to the question that Elliott gave to me. He worded it differently to how I'm going to word it here. But nowadays, why would you build a native app across platform? And I mean, Elliott's chuckling over there. As new to more native app developers.
I've got the mic, so I think that means I start.
Good, all right.
Look, I think this idea of making a decision on an app-by-app basis is probably not the right one. Ultimately, technology stacks are a strategic decision for the business. They're not, if you've got a React Native team and you've got to build a new app, you're probably not going to say it's slightly better suited to a native app. So how about you guys go and become expert iOS and Android developers and then build it native? So, the number one is what is your team and your business capability. And I know that's not the answer that everyone wants, so I'll go into the specifics now. If you're only building for one platform, I personally think you're much better off just going native. Again, the caveat being, what's your team able to build, obviously, but there are still plenty of single platform apps out there. I work on industrial apps where they've got a company managed fleet. They're not interested at all in having a heterogeneous fleet, so they only want the one platform. And similarly, if you've got, I've got clients who might only be interested in selling an app on the App Store for iOS. They're not interested in trying to support Android. So again, in that case, I think native's a logical choice. Other than that, it starts getting a bit hairy, mostly because the cross-platform frameworks are very, very capable today, as Elliott mentioned. I think the more complex an app is, the more hardware integration it is. You can certainly do it cross-platform, but you should be expecting to spend more time trying to work stuff out when it goes wrong, because you've got extra layers that you've got to troubleshoot. And I've been sort of involved in a Flutter app for the last couple of years, and it's not uncommon to spend weeks trying to troubleshoot. Is this going wrong in the Flutter code? Is it going wrong in the third-party plugin that we found somewhere on GitHub? Is it going wrong in the Flutter platform itself? Is it going wrong in the specific one of the specific OSs? So there's that risk involved. If you're after a top-tier app experience, certainly I think you'll need to go native if you're looking for Apple Design Awards or being featured on the App Store. It's much more difficult to get that with cross-platform experience. And things like dynamic islands and app clips and widgets and watch apps and all of the OS specific stuff, you sort of need to go native for those. But I mean, those are the main ones. The only one that I would add, which I think is underappreciated, is I think native is always the lowest technical risk. It's certainly not the cheapest, and there's other. Probably the biggest annoyance is if you're running concurrent development teams and you're trying to synchronize milestones and deliverables. That's a pain. But Google's got a reputation for killing off projects it doesn't like. I can't say how likely it is with Flutter, but it's certainly non-zero. I think we've got PWAs on the horizon, which people have been talking about for 12 years, but they still haven't happened yet. But I have seen them in the wild now. Yes, I saw one in the wild. You might not believe me, but and I think those probably fill the sweet spot that a lot of the cross-platform apps fill. So maybe we'll be looking at PWAs versus cross-platform as the bigger question of the future. But anyway, I've rambled enough. I'll let Elliott talk.
Have a counter argument. Great. We got our native developers. We want to minimize technical risk, and decided to go native app route. A hypothetical client comes to you and says they want an iOS app because iOS brings more money, especially in the consumer space. So in terms of minimizing technical risk, how exactly would they do that? Would they go with the UI kit, which is on the way out, or would they try to use Swift UI, which has been around for 5 years and still feels half-baked? So which one exactly would minimize the technical risk? Just trying to understand.
There is a question coming about this that I'll talk about more, but Swift UI is the answer.
I think you two should duke it out.
Going to share it still.
No, it's all right. We'll cover that later.
Same applies to Android. do I go Jetpack Compose, or do I go the traditional Android view system? You can never have a project which has no technical risk. It's impossible.
The problem that you're stating is I'll inverse that to you, because by adding another layer on top of that, of Flutter or React Native, you're adding more abstraction, and then that, like Sam said, is it the third-party GitHub plugin? Is it the Flutter code itself? You're adding more complexity by adding that layer of abstraction. Yes, you do get some cross-platform stuff for free, but there's nuances that people expect on a platform, and they want. If it's that kind of, there's nothing for free. Like even in React Native world, you still have to do some if statements of like, oh, hang on, this doesn't work. First of all, unless your brand is really, really strong and you've got some really strong designers and a design system, then you want the components to look different. So you don't want the app to look the same. And if you use a Flutter app, it probably isn't, or you'll end up writing code that it does look different. So it gets you to a certain point, but I mean, the other obvious one that no one said is like, it depends what you're building. If you're building a game, or if you're building a Vision Pro app, good luck. I think, it's obvious, but it kind of needs to be stated. But yeah, there's benefits in having a native app.
Well, the majority of games are built using multi-platform toolkit, Unity, or Epic Games, was the Unreal Engine. So both of those are multi-platform. Vision Pro, we'll get back to that once it's actually on sale in Australia. I mean, never tried it, so it seems to be legit. But once it gets here, probably Adapptor will be the first company we'll try to acquire it. And you can contact our wonderful sales team if you would like a Vision Pro app.
I'm pretty agnostic about it all, to be honest. Like, if you want to do multi-platform, go for it, knock yourself out. It depends on, I think the multi-platform is like a good proof of concept. Like, if you're a startup and you want to sort of like get as many people on your platform as possible, do multi-platform, have one engineer. And if the startup fails, then you didn't really burn a lot of money. But if your startup starts getting traction, then maybe go native and then start exploring native stuff. But really, it doesn't make a difference. Like, typically, I feel people just want their apps to feel good. And typically, multi-platform does feel good in most cases. There'll be some weird stuff like, just look at Marketplace, it's terrible. But they really push the limits there. But at the same time, like, it's fine.
Am I the only person who actually kind of likes Marketplace? just fine. It works.
That's right.
I've sold so much furniture on Marketplace, and like, I don't want to be on there.
On to another controversial topic. The flavour of the month around town for however long is AI and AI integration. Now, how have you or your company integrated it? If so, yeah, how? Have they? And how are you finding things in apps such as Copilot, etc.? I know that some companies are very much against it, so I absolutely love it. Any comments from any AI integration that any of you have been playing around with?
I haven't touched it, I don't want to, but ANZ has started doing some of it, but at least on the iOS side, because we typically love Xcode, AI, you can't really have a chatbot for Xcode or LLM for Xcode. Trying to get iOS engineers or Apple engineers to use VS Code is impossible, so they won't do it, and it's probably not going to make much traction, at least in the iOS space, until Xcode integrates it somehow.
Xcode is one of the reasons why I should use multi-platform solutions.
So there is a plugin for it. It's yeah. That's the thing. It's one of those. It comes up in the news articles, and AR is going to take over the world. It's like, as a software developer, it's just another tool. And I think the most dangerous thing is ignoring it and saying no. I think I mean, I've dragged my feet on it because I'm becoming an old dinosaur as well, and I have my own ways of working. But there's definitely benefits in writing. One of the things, probably not in Xcode and native development, but one of the things I've found most useful for is writing that quick batch script and just getting a head start and going, explaining what you want the script to do, and then you still unfortunately need to program, and fixing it up and kind of going, okay, yeah, and asking another question. And I still, every time I use it, I love it. It's amazing. But it's not unfortunately, it's not the silver bullet that, Terminator 2 that we all hope for. Terminator 2 is a better movie, by the way. We need questions about that.
Yeah, so I've looked at the GitHub Copilot product page and I haven't installed it yet. But I have had a client email me some code that they generated using ChatGPT. It was okay. I rewrote it anyway. It didn't meet my standards, but...
At Adapptor, we do use Copilot, and it's useful for a variety of use cases. For example, for generating unit tests, it's a very smart autocomplete. Works really well with VS Code, which you can use with both React Native and Flutter, which we extensively use in Adapptor. It's not going to replace developers anytime soon, but it definitely lowers the bar in terms of like trying new technology and being fairly productive in those technologies. For example, recently I got on a Go project. I know nothing about Go, but a bit of Googling, reading a couple of books on Go, and enabling Copilot, I felt that I could contribute meaningfully to a backend related project written in Go. And without Copilot, I think I would be a bit more frustrated working with that language because I'm not familiar with that ecosystem. But again, Copilot just allows you to move a lot faster. I think this fact that it lowers the bar for learning new languages or exploring new technologies is very beneficial, especially for trying to go a bit more full stack, for where traditionally we would try to keep maybe within like a front-end domain or back-end domain. It would be, let's say, difficult for a back-end developer to memorize all the nuances of CSS syntax to get something displayed on the web page, or nuances of a specific, let's say, iOS-specific or Android-specific library. But with Copilot, if you kind of did it a while ago and you vaguely remember how the thing works, you can use it as your, in a way, second memory. And I feel like in the future, or even in the near future, that will lead to the situation where most of the developers are full stack, where we ship features end to end from a concept all the way to deploying it on Azure, AWS, etc.
Thanks for that, Elliott. Next question. Obviously, last week we saw the Vision Pro get released over in the States. Where do we think wearable devices are going? How big do we think they're going to get? Thoughts on Vision Pro? Obviously, we haven't had a diving one yet, but off the bat, there's been some crazy videos out there. I'm sure we've all seen them. Any early thoughts on Vision Pro or just wearable devices in general?
Nobody else want to take this one? Okay. There's an article, a blog article that I wrote about the iPad in whenever that came out in 2010, and I was like, nobody wants a bigger screen, typical Apple engineer. And in typical Apple fashion, they're gonna do that thing that they do, where they'll create a market for it. And I think, again, like it needs to be smaller, and it reminds me of what I've seen of it through videos. It's a prototype, and there's a reason it's only in the US. But I think there's definitely some interesting things going to happen from it. And I wish I knew what that was now so I could jump on it. So I got nothing else to say on that.
I personally think we're at least taking away from a viable consumer VR. The form factor is too clunky, it's too expensive. They haven't shown a single use case that would actually be truly like augmenting reality or properly utilizing capabilities of the device. Yes, you have windows floating in space around you, but that's not even three-dimensional, just two-dimensional interfaces and just three-dimensional space. So that plus the fact that if you're any person in the hairstyling or makeup, and we put that on, it's going to wreck both of those, making it impractical for at least 50% of the population.
Yes, I think a decade's probably roughly right. The bigger issue for me is where we've had technology jumps. There's been a clear path. For instance, for mobile phones, we went for like a giant yuppie device to the little feature phones, to the Blackberries, to the smartphone that we know today. But each of those has been useful, and it's a lot harder to see where the goggles are going to be, what the intermediate steps are to get to the point which is presumably the end point is where the glass, ubiquitous glasses that we're wearing while we're walking around. So that's the thing for me. But I think the thing that we know from the past is the way that technological advancements are going to affect the future is really non-obvious to us. It's going to be, the killer apps. We don't understand what they are at this point. I think there are going to be some.
That the iPhone had.
Yeah, the beer. So yeah, I think there will be some. It's going to be interesting, but we'll wait and see. I mean, I know one of the Perth OS guys went up to the labs in Singapore and had a go at it. So he said it was interesting, but I don't think he's rushing to buy one.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much like mimicking what you guys are saying, but I feel like it's not really going to take off until battery technology gets so much smaller and so much more efficient, because right now, you have that little battery pack, which is 2.5 hours. It's clunky. But then again, battery packs really control everything, right? And unless there's a breakthrough in some sort of energy storage, it's kind of a novelty, yeah.
Huh? Flubber.
Yeah.
It's not going to take off as a consumer device, but I think it might be uniquely positioned to be a place where this technology...
Mine sites.
Sorry?
On the mines?
On the mines,
yeah.
Or any kind of B2B setting, be that healthcare, mine, engineering. With that, where maybe you could build a killer app with a potential for monetization, where $7,000 is irrelevant, or the price tag is irrelevant, and if the experience is decent enough and makes you a lot more productive, then sure. I mean, it's good enough to build the kind of experience you did conceptualize the last 5 years on Oculus and other devices. Well, we can build. The question is, can we?
So the final question I have is quite general, so you can take this in any way you wish, but any current or upcoming trends that fellow mobile developers should be keeping their eyes out on? Anything that you think is going to be the next big thing? Any comments on the future of mobile app development?
Oh man, I don't know.
You can give up 3 ideas.
It's in the email.
Yeah, I feel like these people are using apps less and less, more so than ever, right? I install an app maybe once every 3 months. I just don't download apps anymore. But I was talking to my friend Matt over here, who builds TV Forecast. It became a utility for me. Now I use it every other day because I found a really good use for it. And it's really rare to find these sort of apps. So mainly it's building apps is hard. I don't know. I kind of ramble on that, but I have no idea what I'm talking about. But at the same time, people are using apps less and less, and the market isn't as much of a gold rush as it once was. So if you're going to build an app, make it really sweet.
I think, make sweet apps. Sweet. I think it goes back to the Vision Pro question. It's solve a problem, and a lot of startups like to burn through money before making sure they focus on solving a problem. And that goes for software engineering in general. I think it's okay to fangirl out, but make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. At the end of the day, that users probably don't care if it's an Apple product or whatever it is. They just want the weather, or they want the problem solved. That's not really ideas or trends.
Yeah, sorry, to circle back to the question from Elliott before, I think one of the big shifts that's happening with native mobile is SwiftUI and Jetpack Compose. I think today you shouldn't be building new apps in UIKit or XML layouts. It's a lot harder to make prescriptive advice around what happens with your existing code. I think if it works, probably don't touch it. But yeah, definitely, they've got rough edges, but the productivity benefits are pretty clear, and obviously it's the way forward. There's a less obvious shift that's probably more important that's happening within the mobile platforms, and that's concurrency. So Swift concurrency and Kotlin coroutines, they're on the face of it, they're fairly straightforward. Just adding async await to the languages that we should have had for ages, but there's a lot more to it than that if you look at what they're trying to accomplish. I like to think of mobile as being a sort of a compiler designer, a language designer sandbox for concurrency, because on mobile apps we're normally dealing with a lot of threads in a single process, sort of on purpose. Whereas that tends to be rare in a lot of our other development we do. So that's one of the things where I think Swift and Kotlin are doing some very interesting things around how they manage concurrency, but there are also a lot of foot guns in the way that they've implemented it, and that's an area, I guess, where we should all be investing time and effort in trying to learn how to use it effectively. So that's my advice: go away and learn concurrency coroutines.
I think just to add to that, I think it's important to not do that on the home screen of your app. And it sounds obvious when you say this, but try it out and sort out your architecture in a hidden section of the app, and get those developers loving those new Swift UI frameworks. There's still parts of it, but as you said, that are a bit iffy, and learn and figure those out, not in the production app, because you've released it. And yeah, I'm not speaking from experience.
Yeah, I can add that app fatigue is real. Users do install a lot less apps these days than they used to before, at least maybe like 5 to 6 years ago. And all that means that sometimes when you're building an experience for your business, it doesn't always have to be an app. Let's say a mobile website sometimes serves you equally well as a decent mobile app. And mobile web can deliver quite a lot these days. So for those transient experiences where the session is maybe under a minute, under 5 minutes, it's often the mobile web delivers a lot better results. At the same time, as I mentioned before, there's definitely a trend towards full stack development. So the devs shipping across the boundaries of the platform, from developing the UX and the front user-facing side of things to the infrastructure and the back-end services supporting those. And picking the tools and technology, especially again as a junior developer, as somebody learning to code, picking the tools that help you to build across those different domains, be that TypeScript, JavaScript, C#, Kotlin would be a fantastic choice. Pick a tool that allows you to try those different domains, see where your strengths and weaknesses are, and experiment with working across those different domains in software development.
I hate the phrase full stack. I just want to put that out there.
Fantastic. Well, and that's the list of questions that I had. So I'd like to pass it over to the audience now. I'll come running around with the mic. We've got Jared, who I think wants to ask the first question.
Yeah, I got a really selfish question. I have a design background, and I'm always looking to find ways to bridge the gap between design and development. Have empathy for the challenges that you guys face when you build, etc. And in your experience, how was your best approach working with designers to make sure that your output delivers the most value for customers? How do you work with them? Is it for all requirements up front? Is it regular basis, regular meetings, sprint planning, whatever? How does it work?
If a designer can code and understands the platform really well, I've found that to be really amazing. But my biggest gripe with working with designers is that they only show happy path templates. Like, what happens if this label is in German and it goes 3 lines? What happens if I increase the text size for accessibility reasons? So they show me this really nice design, like, now I have all these edge case questions. So showing multiple versions of the same screen with different settings is probably the most efficient way to reduce communication between us. Like if you give me three designs with long labels and large text and different things, I'm like, okay, I can run with this.
Yeah, and probably one of the best ways that I've seen to solve that is by using a design system. So you're not, when you're creating a new screen, you're not solving that problem every single time, and you can reuse the developer can reuse the components, and they're not writing every time they build a new component. They've written tests, because we all write tests for our code. Everyone nod. And yeah, there's so much benefit there, because you're not reinventing the wheel every time. You're solving that problem once, and that's not to say, you know, make everything Lego bricky and don't design anything, but just have at least that core base.
Darren learn to code. But yeah, definitely give the comment that the design system that they're important. It also helps just be in the same office, work closely on a daily basis. Upfront requirements will never cover the full spectrum of all the challenges you might encounter during developing. Just being flexible about the requirements and being able to extend them and adjust them when needed is super valuable.
Yeah, I'd echo the upfront. I think it's great having a good design up front, but then, you know, requirements change. You know, new features get added. I've certainly worked with designers where they've come back and looked at the app after a year and said, "Oh my God, I don't want my name on that anymore." And yeah, I guess you could pay Figma the extra $35 a month that they want now. That works. But yeah. I love working with designers. I don't always get to, so you know, I love the work you do.
We see that the web, in some ways, is gaining a bit of a foothold over mobile apps. Is that a concern for anybody?
Depends. No, I think if you're ignoring it, as I said before, it can be dangerous. But I think apps are here to stay. You mark my words, this is recorded. I'll be out of a job soon. Yeah, I think that the muscle memory and the market has matured, and people expect, like Andy just said, that things work that native feel, and there's going to be progressions. But then there's, you know, PWA is not perfect. It's still not quite the same. And that little app that you love, and it's the personal experience from that. Like, as weird as that sounds.
I totally disagree. There are examples. We do have an example of a platform where web completely won and destroyed the native landscape entirely, which is desktop. Majority of the apps that you're using on this or can use on your desktop are basically PWAs wrapped in Electron shell. Slack.
That's why they suck.
VS Code. And still, VS Code is your most popular IDE. Slack is the most popular messaging platform. Teams, and many other countless apps that the users are more than happy to use. I think what's going to happen is there are going to be two distinct phases. Phase one is the line between web and mobile will become more and more blurry. And to complement the other in Facebook, the Threads web app is fantastic. Well, actually, really good. So you can deliver high quality, almost native-like experiences even in the browser, and depending on how good your browser is. And Safari on iOS isn't particularly great, but Chrome on Android is a lot more mature. And the line will become a lot more blurry. AI will allow you to abstract even more things away, and we could potentially have compiler with some AI elements that could allow you to thumb to the underlying platforms almost more directly, and thus avoid some of those edge cases and, let's say, bottlenecks that we currently have with existing multi-platform frameworks. So multi-platform will get a lot better. WebAssembly, when you have an app running in WebAssembly written in Rust that runs in the browser, is that a native app or is that a web app? Hard to say. Or if you have a Flutter app that runs, compiles to bytecode on mobile, is that a native app or is that a hybrid app? It's hard to say, so the line becomes more blurred. But then we have devices like Rabbit, that was recently introduced in CES, and, for example, some experiments that Arc browser is doing, where the users really care about the actions and information, and they don't really care about the shell. They don't really care about the UI around them. So in the future, you can imagine an interface where some kind of Siri, Google Assistant-like assistant helps you to achieve your task without ordering ordering food or booking a plane ticket and so on without even using an app. You just tell your computer what you want to do, and the thing just does it for you, be that using some kind of backend API interfaces, or it could even render the appropriate UI based on the schema that the API would expose. So multiple phases, and I don't think the landscape will resemble anything that we have at the moment. I think the time and day when you had to build native apps to make sure that they fit the design language of an underlying platform, blah blah blah, I think that's gone. It's never going to go back to that.
Yes, I disagree. So to answer the specific question, I'm not really worried about apps going away because, at least the apps that I build, because I do lots of heavy Bilue and location-based apps. I don't think, I'm reasonably confident that web apps won't be doing that. Now, there's some interesting things happening in the regulatory space at the moment, particularly with the EU that think they can redesign the App Store. Which is, there's some fun stuff going on there. One of the, but probably to answer Elliott's question, the difference between a web app and a native app is if it's running in a browser sandbox or if it's running in the OS sandbox. I think is the defining feature. So I would class Electron apps as native apps, even though they're being built using web technologies because they do run outside a browser. And I think that distinction is going to continue. Certainly Apple's got a vested interest in making sure that distinction continues. They're not really interested in having a Chrome OS for iOS, if that kind of makes sense. So that's, I don't see the convergence to quite the same degree that Elliott does on that one. Yeah, but I mean, in regulatory, there's some interesting things happening there. I don't know if everyone's across it, but we'll see what happens. Certainly, I think everyone's getting exactly what they didn't want. So that's regulatory plus, I guess.
Apple versus EU. Yeah, so one thing I've kind of forgot, I just realized remember right now is like the EU has mandated that Apple open up because right now if you build a web app, right, you have to use Safari or Safari technology. Now they're forcing Apple to open up so you can use like Chrome OS or WebKit or whatever it is. What is it called?
It's browser engine choice.
Yeah, different browser engine choices, right? So,
but you can't install them to the home screen.
Yeah, one sort of theory is that Apple's has kind of suppressed Safari, the performance of Safari, so that people will build native apps, so that way they can sort of get their money and whatnot. But it'd be interesting. Let this play out in a year or two and see where things fall.
What about the 50-cent commission on the third-party app store? You across that one?
I don't understand why people are surprised by it. Apple's always monetized the platform by the App Store. If they're saying we're not allowed to just use the App Store, they're going to find another way to do it. The wording of the DMA, the EU DMA, specifically allows them to put controls around sideloading or third-party app stores. So that's what they've done. And again, everyone gets what they didn't want. So that's sort of the inevitable outcome.
There's a massive opportunity for someone in Europe to build a super app, because under that business model where you pay 50 cents per install per year, as I remember, you can have a shell of a super app and then have embedded experiences with their own payment methods, allowing people to build basically their own app store within an app store. Because before you couldn't build a super app business model like WeChat, let's say, because of those restrictions, but now it's a lot more feasible and plausible to do that. So on one hand you have that, but also realistically what Apple did is a joke. Their response to the regulation just violated the spirit of the regulation, and I can't imagine EU settling on that response, and obviously they're either going to modify the law or the European Commission might just review the response and conclude that it's not proportional to what was required.
Sorry, just on the super app, the same rules are going to apply around dynamic downloading of code. So you won't be able to. You could certainly stream, and they've made that rule available across the board. So Microsoft can restart their streaming game platform, but you won't be able to download executable code within an app, even if it's from outside the App Store.
So no more code push.
Well, you can still pay 30% commission.
But at the moment, you can have code iOS apps downloading using the Code Push platform on the App Store, and they don't disallow that.
They don't allow it.
Yeah, it technically violates the rules, but I think if it's JSC, they're not too worried about it.
Would it be okay if we had a little poll on it?
Go for it, guys.
A is fully remote. You prefer fully remote. B is you prefer fully in the office. C is you prefer a combination, like be remote in the same city and sometimes come to the office. So
What about working from office like a couple of days a week? Is that C?
well, yeah, that would be C.
More like D.
Well, I was just trying to keep it simple. So it would be A. Oh, that's low. Who would be B? No one likes B. So C. Well, that's clear, isn't it? Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Thank you very much.
So I love remote. I hate time zones. I don't know if anyone else does, but we've spent 20 years convincing ourselves that the best way to do software is to just have a chat with someone next door, which works well if you can go into the next office and have a 10-minute chat with them. It doesn't work as well if you send them off a message and wait till tomorrow.
I love working remote, but I also miss the camaraderie of working with like my teammates. But I don't want to travel an hour each way to do that, so I prefer to work from home.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what, I think I might have answered it wrong. Yeah, I prefer remote, fully remote. I think it forces people to document things because of that async nature, and it ends up with a better product. It's been a while since lots of people have moved remote, and there's still, people are learning how to do it properly still. But I think the benefits from a human side of, like you said, not going an hour on the train and wasting an hour and then an hour back. I got to see my kid grow up. I've got a 2-year-old, and I got to see the first walks of my kid growing up. And my dad he's a mechanic, and he worked 7 till 7. I didn't see him growing up, and I think the human side of that is definitely going to change who we are as people. And yeah, I don't think we can underestimate how much that's going to change people as that generation comes through. Not to be dramatic or anything like that. Yeah, and then ignore my kid. Yeah, be on my phone.
Working from office is great. You get nothing replaces those coffee machine / water cooler conversations. You can discuss work-related matters. You can discuss the latest trends in tech. And yes, you have to spend 30 minutes to an hour sitting on the train. I read on the train. I'm productive on the train. I don't consider that time wasted. Depends how you structure your commute. At the same time, for companies, cohesion and team building that 2 to 3 days a week deliver, they outweigh any downsides of trying to force people to go to office. Yes, you might lose on some candidates who might say, no, I don't want to work from office, I want to be fully remote, but at the same time, maybe that candidate is just not a good fit for your company culture.
Hi, I'm just curious about how AI, and I'm not talking about ChatGPT, because I think we've all learned that the code isn't really that accurate, but how AI will actually lead app technology. We've got Google about to rename Mars to Gemini, Ultron, launching that today, I think it is. And it's a lot more interactive and personalising interactions with the user. So how do you think apps are going to actually stay up with where AI is actually going?
I have a stab. I think there's going to be like Andy said before. I keep saying like Andy said, the distinction of a main app binary. I think there's going to be app extensions. We already have app extensions, but I think they're going to they're going to be more proliferant. There's going to be more extensions and interconnection between the OS and specific parts of the app and the OS system. Yeah, that's my guess anyway.
I think tools like ChatGPT or LLM in general give you an ability to process unstructured data a lot more efficiently than before. So in the past, you would have to know the schema, the data schema exactly to be able to display it in some kind of usable form. So the UI usually would have assumptions about what kind of data comes from the server and then displays that data accordingly and allow users to interact with that using buttons and knobs and whatever you have on your page. With ChatGPT and LLMs and built into the operating systems and or backend systems, you're able to take output from any data stream and turn it into a usable user interface. Sounds awful, but some kind of visualization of that data that user can then engage with. So a lot more we get a lot more flexibility in terms of having those dynamic interfaces and interfaces that adapt the user need. At the same time, you could even have machine learning algorithm could analyze users' preferences and adapt the app UI specifically to the preferences of individual users. So let's say my Facebook app could look completely different to your Facebook app depending on how we consume content in that app. And that would be mind-blowingly good. I think I've touched on something. That's a magic word.
It already does that. So everyone's Facebook app is actually very different based on the algorithm, but in terms of the AI stuff, like I think it's going to make data more equitable. Like, you know, a really good example I feel is, let's say you have like a table of data and I want to sort of find some sort of nuanced data. Previously, you'd have to look up how to make an Excel formula, right, to get some sort of signal out of all this data. AI sort of makes that easy because you just ask in natural human language, like, hey, I want to find out how many people have here done X, Y, Z, and it will generate that formula for you. Whether it works or not, I don't know, but eventually it's going to work much more, like at a high or 100% of the time.
We go. So one of the interesting questions that's sort of facing the industry at the moment is particularly the large language models, do they get larger and more general and more capable of doing everything, or do we end up with very, very task-specific smaller models which are maybe baked into an app and able to help you accomplish something very specific? And I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I follow some smart people and they don't know the answer to that either. I think Apple would like to think that we're doing more sort of smaller task-specific stuff. They've put a lot of effort into making sure that we can run models on device. So certainly there's the capability there to do stuff within your app. But whether or not that's the way that the industry goes, whether or not that's what people want, I couldn't say. But it's certainly possible.
What do you think of Scrum Masters?
Yeah, I'm not going to touch that one.
I never worked with any. And basically at Facebook, there's no such thing as a Scrum Master. You would have a product, like a product manager or a product owner, and then they sort of delegate tasks out to engineers. Like I was fortunate enough that I worked only on infrastructure, which don't have any product owners, because it's all very bottoms-up engineering driven. Like engineers say, like, here's what my team does, here's what I think I can contribute to my team's impact. I did work on the Libra cryptocurrency for a little bit, and that was a product, but that was only a product owner. So there's no, it's very loose, like, hey, can you do this? Yes, I do this. Give me a time frame, done. None of this paper on the wall or anything like that.
I was consulting in Sydney, and I was working for a bank, and I was in the elevator. This sounds like a start of a joke, and I was in the elevator, and someone was like, I thought I was being punked. There's this new term, it's called agile, and there's going to be new managers. And this was only in the last 5 years or so. So I think it's I know you're being funny, but I think it's a comment on either bad software engineers or bad managers or bad senior leadership. But it does solve a problem, and I have been in this situation where it's like, some agile managers or some form of structure and management might actually help here. But for the most part, it just slows things down with ceremonies and procedures and sacrificing whatever the agile is.
I actually worked as a Scrum Master for 1.5 years. All I can say is there's definitely some value in it. Many people don't know how to cook it well. I think the best way to do it is to combine it with product management role. So at least when you set tasks and you will monitor the task execution, you're aware of context and maybe there's some of the customer specific requirements. I would say Java, for example, on Adapptor is somewhat of a combination of the Scrum Master and a product manager. And he does it really well. So this role is very fluid. You can have a software engineer, one of the software engineers or tech lead on the team who also acts as the Scrum Master. That was my case. You can have a product manager who acts as the Scrum Master. It's not a title, it's a role, it's a more fluid role, right? I think in the future we'll have more convergence between product, tech lead roles and this day-to-day project management that will make everyone a lot more happy, a lot more efficient. And I think that's where Facebook actually leads the way in a way that they don't have rigid management structures in different teams, and that works really, really well.
Probably just circling back to the comment I made around efficiency and productivity. I have been involved in a team where a cross-functional team of about 9 people, I think, where 2 of them were developers. And regardless of whether or not, I mean, that might be really common in corporates, I don't know, but it obviously sets an upper limit to the productivity in the economic sense. I think a lot of what we've done in Agile has been trying to make larger teams work more like smaller teams, and with mixed success. And yeah, Scrum Masters, sometimes they're good, but I think their major value's always been insulating the team from the rest of the crap going on, particularly in those larger environments. Because a lot of I've seen a lot of bad ones, I guess is what I'd say.
Cool. Well, we'll probably call that a wrap. If you guys are happy to hang around and answer any little questions that any the audience has, but yeah, I'd just like to, if everyone could give a round of applause to our guests, please. Thanks to everyone for attending. Really do appreciate the support. As I say, this is our 4th one now. We seem to be getting good numbers each time. We really appreciate the support. Hope we will learn something and take something away from it today. Finding talkers and speakers is the hardest part of my job organising these. So if any of you are interested to present something, come and talk about something that we think other people will find interesting, please do come and shout. That'd be much appreciated. If you could also give us a rating on Meetup, 5-star would be great, just to help with the growth and the visibility. Much appreciated, as I say. Our next event will be in May, so we try and do these every 3 months. So keep an eye out for all that other information on the socials. And yeah, thanks again. Safe trip home, and we'll see you again soon.